Believe it or not, inside there is the remains of a wonderful old Victorian cricket pavilion that I'm turning into a fabulous weekend retreat for myself and my mates. Now, the last time you were with us, we were putting all these timber frames up, and they went up quite well. Pegs all went in, squared, nice joints, no problems at all. So what's to be done next? There's the roof to go on, and there's some walls to go up, and there's washing. Blimey, there's a big washroom. We've got wheelchair access, loos and showers here, ordinary pedestrian access over there. We've got cylinders, we've got basins, we've got bathrooms.
Now, when it's all finished, it should look something like this, with a roof deck, verandas front and back, and wood shingles, and nearly all the materials coming from the woods. But before we get on with the plumbing, I'm just going to drag you down the hill to Grove Cottage, my last building project, to explain all about wastewater.
There it is, that's water going to waste. Comes in two colours. This is grey, you know, the sink, shower, dishwasher. That's all grey water. Black water is a different story altogether. Oh, there you are. Well, don't worry, I had my decks on all along. That's black water, and that's what's going to be going in the septic tank that's been in the wood for years. And the grey water from the washing machines, although we haven't got one up in the woods, but the sinks and the basins and all that stuff, the showers, will go in a grey water tank, and we'll use that for washing bikes and stuff of that nature. And we're going to put a new tank in just for that purpose, so come and have a look.
The tank is going to be situated in the bank at the rear of the building, and as it's a plumbing matter, I'm going to need the expertise of my old friend Robin Mills.
Now, Robin is the grey water meister, and there he is. Look, ta-da! Right on
Good
cue.
afternoon.
And he's the man who's going to connect this tank to bits of orange pipe to various other systems that'll fill it up and provide us with grey water. So we've got to get this tank in. Is that the first step, Robin?
Believe so. It's very easy, you told me that.
Yeah, I know. So I tell you everything's easy until we try it.
Yes. Rotate. Right.
If we
I think it's stuck,
flatten
actually.
it first. Yeah, we flatten it first, it won't be
I
quite...
might have to get back out of the hole at this point.
Hang on, if we lay it down on its arse.
Let me get round this side of it.
Okay,
It came out a lot easier than that.
there we go.
Right, rotate.
You're going to cut a hole in the top then to feed in.
That's more or less the shortest route out. Cheers.
Cool. Robin's obviously cut off the end of the pipe and is just giving it a bevel, he hopes, so that it'll slide in easily as a connector into that 90-degree bend. We see Robin's so good at this, I believe he must have been a full-time beveler in his previous incarnation. Or some sort of beveler, I can't imagine.
Beveler or chiseler.
Probably chiseler, yeah. Lead, maybe. Maybe he worked in lead as a sort of medieval worker of some sort. He's got a bit of a medieval worker look about him, actually. I have to be frank. The shorts look medieval. The tank is being reused. I mean, everything's recycled around here. It was an old water tank, and we stood on the butt of a tree. Well, it's 600 gallons, and it's a lot of water to have lying around. You'll have to put something in it to treat it. That'll cost a lot of money, but frankly, just lift the lid and drop a pill in, and that'll stop any nasty bugs from developing. And it's a very useful resource. We pay for water here. We're going to have to backfill with a bit of concrete here to stop it all collapsing in, but don't see a problem with that.
As you no doubt remember, Treetops shares the woods with a bike track, and at the clubhouse, Robin is taking me through his plans for washrooms and bathrooms.
Taps that in so you can admire the view.
Well, why not? If you've got it, flaunt it. I see.
We have a hot water cylinder in this corner of the facility,
Lovely.
probably about there. We have a basin about there in its own location. In this corner, there'll be a wall across here. There'll be a shower running straight into a drain in the corner.
But my immediate question is, you say two loos and two showers, but one of them is wheelchair accessible,
That's
obviously.
it, with a wide door.
Yeah,
It
great.
needs to be virtually a metre wide. So what we have arrived at is a 300 litre hot water cylinder, which is twice as high as a normal domestic one. And in the top third of the cylinder, there's a coil of pipe which will take water, will warm the water up, passing through it.
Now, this water cylinder is not the typical sort of thing you'd find in every house, but its design is very important for public health reasons. But a bit more of that later.
Well, Robin's just gone to get the cylinder, but we escaped and we're coming in here to see my mate Bob Doherty, who, believe it or not, runs his own brewery, which involves a bit of pipe work, and you never know, I might learn something. Doubt it, mine, but it's worth a try, eh? I think the dog's allowed in. Here we go.
And I must confess that the Larkins Brewery here is a regular haunt of mine. Well, I thought my water supply was complicated, but listen to this. The water needed for brewing cannot be used straight from the tap. First you've got to cool it, and then you treat it with sulfuric acid, which firstly turns the chlorines into chlorides, and then it turns the sulfur from the sulfuric acids into sulfates, which are brewing salts. Well, having added the water to the malt to create maltose, which is a type of brewing sugar, next comes the ingredient for which this area is most famous.
And what we're doing there, we've got the first lot of hops in, which are our copper hops. They're the ones that are going to balance the sweetness of the maltose with the bitterness of the hops.
Right.
And that's the first stage. And the hops are in there for an hour and a half. So I boil for half an hour. And then at the end, I should put in what we call the aroma hops. They go in for the last 7 minutes, and we extract the hop nose without extracting any more bitterness from it.
Well, Bob's gone off to throw a few more hops in the brew and give it that aroma he spoke about earlier. And he's left me alone in his workshop with one of his toys. Well, what is it, eh? Few clues. It's got a 6.3 litre Typhoon engine. It weighs 2 tons. It's a 2+2 coupe. Massive discs all round. A wonderful bit of kit. But quite rare in the UK. It's not an English car. It is, in fact, a French car. And there's the badge. Facile Vega? Ring any bells? Well, back in '62, when this car was first produced, you could pick one of these up for, well, put it this way, a Rolls Royce was £5,000. One of these cost a little bit more, 5,500. It was the French Rolls Royce. Well, as an ex-racing driver, I do know a bit about cars, and believe me, everything about this is excessive. £120 to fill the tank, change the tyres every 3,000 miles, and you might as well do the brakes while you're at it. It's not cheap, but, you know, it's glamorous. I mean, it's a beautiful big motor. It's an elegant car, without a shadow of a doubt. But my goodness, it's heavy. There's the amplifier for the radio. I mean, that alone weighs about 4 pounds. So it's a big beast and it's a big project, but it will look beautiful at the end, and that's how it's going to look. Do you want one now? A very elegant car, but as a guy who used to race a 1.6 Lotus, the idea of being behind a 6.3 lump like this, it's a monster.
Well, Robin's Sherpa van may not have the looks of the Facile Vega, although I'm not sure Robin sees it that way, but it's certainly got plenty of room in the back, and you can easily get a hot cylinder in there.
Heaven help us. Ugh. That ages you. Right. Yangadoo. Here it is. Now, if you're squeamish, look away now, because the L words come up, Legionella, which I hate to tell you is one of Robin's favourites. And if you've got, well, if you don't like Legionella, plenty of time to make a cup of tea. Robin, tell us about Legionella, because it is an important issue and it kills people, so they need to know about it.
Legionella is present in about 60% of water systems, those that have been surveyed. This water system, I think you can be fairly certain, will be inhabited by the organism at some point. 60 degrees centigrade will kill it after a while. 65 will kill it in about 3 minutes. The breeding range is around 45 degrees centigrade. Now, one of the reasons for using heat exchanger coils to heat the hot water is to keep that water volume small. In each of these coils there's about 15 litres of water. Now that, as a sterilisation problem, is a considerably smaller problem than 300 litres. The other thing about Legionella is that it is very commonly found in systems with iron pipework. About 90% of systems that have been surveyed have been found to contain the organism.
90% of iron ones?
Iron pipe. In plastic pipe systems, about 65 of those surveyed were contaminated. Copper pipe systems, about 2%. So copper is a fairly toxic material to biological growth. which is why we have a copper hot water cylinder, and why you'll find almost all hot water cylinders used in this country are made of copper.
And I wonder, after Robin's terrifying account, how many of you with plastic pipes will be sleeping with the light on tonight? It's another lovely morning, and work on transforming our old cricket pavilion into a weekend retreat takes a brief halt for morning tea break.
Do you know all the railings in London got painted black, you know, when Albert died? But prior to that, they were multicoloured. They really must have looked extraordinary. Bright blues and reds and greens and yellows and so on.
You've seen that colour they describe as dead salmon?
Dead salmon?
It's a sort of a brown.
Oh. How long dead salmon?
Back to work, and Harry's laying the joists for the veranda. On the roof, Simon and Nick are constructing the roof deck. The Medway Valley, which Treetops overlooks, wasn't always like this. If you were to drag back one of the Romans that used to live round here, I doubt he'd recognise any of it.
So here's the beautiful River Medway. And what's the Roman connection? Let me show you. This was once an enormous floodplain way across those trees in the distance. And I'm reliably informed that Roman ships used to sail up this valley to a villa just around the corner. Now, in those days, this was just open water with plants in between, and slowly over the years, it's been drained. Why? Well, they built infrastructure, bridges, roads and whatever, and it was no longer needed as a navigable waterway. And what do you get as a result? Wonderful fertile fields, covered in silt, great producing fields. What have you lost? Amazingly, loads of reeds. These valleys were full of reeds. Who needs reeds? Me. Grove Cottage, which I built in Penshurst, is thatched, and so are most of the houses around here, usually with reeds. A little bit of long straw on the roof, along the ridge, but there we are. And where do we get them from today? Bucharest. The world has gone mad. And here on the banks of the river, you can see modern archaeology. Some lovely old bits of concrete. They once were tank traps, and when they rebuilt the bridge, they put them back. I quite like it, don't you? You never know who might be coming round the corner. Best to be safe. Well, here we are in the beautiful Medway Valley, just where it's crossed by the A21. You can see it in the background there. London to the north, Hastings to the south. And why are we here? Well, when you clear a valley, the water flows more rapidly. And as a result, it gets down to here from the Ashdown Forest all the quicker. And of course, the people living in Tunbridge don't want a lot of water, especially in their back garden. So what do? You have to build a flood barrier. And here is that flood barrier, this great big earth bank. It runs from about a mile or so in that direction, right round to some huge gates just beyond the railway line. And they control the flow of water through the rest of the Medway down to Tunbridge, Yalding, Rochester and so on. And they make sure that this water that now flows so much more quickly doesn't flow up someone's back garden and cause a bit of a mess. And curiously, the last time there was a huge flood through here, somebody went and opened the floodgate and flooded Tunbridge and Yalding and so on. And the same person apparently received the MBE. I'd have done it for a lot less.
It's another day and time to put in the cold water storage tanks, known in the trade as coffin tanks. Now, we're going to need a couple of these. The water supply in the woods is a little unreliable. I must confess that Robin and I are managing to make this look much more difficult than it actually is.
So this is the coffin tank, and here it goes. It doesn't weigh much. Looks heavy, but it's not. Unlike me, who looks heavy in the ears. So, good position for it too, almost directly above the cylinder and pretty close to the washrooms. And then, as I said earlier, we'll be raising that slightly, try and get it tight under the rafters, give us a bit more pressure, and do a nice job.
Well, Simon, amongst other things, has been busy with the rafters of the pitch roof. He's been cutting notches in them called bird's mouths where they sit on the wall plate. The wall plate, of course, is the big bit of timber that runs along the top of the wall.
Right, now I see you've got most of the common rafters in place, bird's mouth top and bottom, but this rafter's marked out with one bird's mouth at the top, three at the bottom. Would you like to explain why?
Yes, this one's the pattern, and every other rafter on the roof is marked off this pattern. This one's first marked out using the roofing square by stepping it down like that in foot sections of the span. And there are three different bird's mouths because they've got three different plate heights. You've got one for the traditional eaves at the front there. You've got one which is the cross rail at that end, which is the equivalent of that beam there. And then you've got this one here. So those are just the three different positions, and it's all done from the same pattern, so you don't get an uneven. If you don't do them all from the same one, you find they tend to grow as you're making them.
Creep, don't they? Okay, so now we've got the sexy bit to go in. Our good old hip in the corner here. What do you reckon? I can see that you've already marked out where you're going to be putting your foot of the hip rafter here.
Yep.
So obviously you're going to have a slightly deeper section rafter for the hip.
Yeah, that'll be a 6x2 rather than a 4x2.
Right.
And
then of course you'll have a couple of jack rafters infilling.
oh no, probably 5 or 6 each
5 or
side.
6?
Yeah.
All right. And like magic, your woodworking wizardry will finish this corner of the roof off.
It will, yes. That's about it.
Looking forward to that.
When Treetops is finally finished, one of the first people on my guest list will be my old mate Mike Burrows. Now Mike, as you may remember, was the man who invented and designed the bike that Chris Boardman took to Olympic gold in Barcelona in '92. Well, he just happened to be down this weekend for a bike race here in my bike track in the woods, and he showed me some of his latest creations.
Beautiful bike. I congratulate you on making such an elegant piece of
Thank you. Well, say this is obviously that you recognise it from Barcelona, but Mr. Boardman's epic ride. But this is, if you like, moved on one stage from that. The principles of the carbon fibre moulded frame instead of a massive tubing is the same. But this bit, which is the traditional chain guard, if you like, off the old-fashioned Dutch bike, is now carbon fibre with the chain inside it, and that's then the structure of the bicycle. And this has improved the aerodynamics immensely, even over, you know, that original monocoque bicycle. This is an even faster bike. Not with me on it, maybe. Mr. Boardman's still a rather better engine, but it's very elegant. And it's a shame it's illegal. The governing bodies since Barcelona decided nobody should ride anything modern in the way of a bicycle. It has to be made from iron sticks and conform to these rather silly rules. Which is probably affecting bicycle sales as well. So it's a fast bike, but of course it's not the fastest you can have if you don't mind being banned from regular cycle sport.
This thing looks really sleek.
This is what is sort of more my...
Looks
when
like
I
a
race
Ferrari.
myself these days, this I can probably keep up with Mr. Boardman on when he's on the other bicycle. This we no longer call a bicycle, this is a human-powered vehicle, and we have a club for racing human-powered vehicles because the authorities ban them. So the aerodynamics of this, because you're laying down, are even better than the other bike. It doesn't have to be the fancy carbon fibre, but at the back you've got this nice little airflow deflection in effect, thing to smooth off the air off the back, aero handlebars, bits and pieces. But it's also a very useful little boot. So your sandwiches and your drinks, and if you use it for shopping, you can pack quite a lot in there at the end of the day.
Well, you say quite a lot, Michael, but it's not enough for me.
Well,
They carry logs, mate.
my most radical bike to date.
I can get a chainsaw in there.
This won't break any speed records, Michael, at least. But I don't even think the UCI would allow you to race it either, for that matter, but it will carry an awful lot. This is my latest product. And again, a lot of the same features. The technology off the back, the gearing, the transmission is all straight from the recumbent.
Yep.
The same single fat tube through, the same monoblades as you saw on the original, on the Olympic bike, although not for aerodynamics here, but for ease of tyre changing. If you get a puncture or whatever and you've got your chainsaw in the back, you don't need to take it out. You can pop the tyre off the side of the wheel, mend the puncture, spare in the tube in the back of the bike. So it's proving a very practical product for me, sort of thing. It's just the sort of the longest sort of nice light freight bike going, sort of thing. The couriers all over London are starting to use them for getting through gaps in traffic with really quite heavy loads on it. They're carrying 100-kilo barrels of beer in York in one of these on a regular basis.
Absolutely marvellous.
So if
But what an interesting contrast. Some of the fastest machines in the cycling world.
This is it. Yes, I've gone from quite a sort of a spectrum of bicycles. So obviously there's
You've
just
gone down in speed.
I've gone down in speed, sort of thing, but up in practicality, I suspect, sort of thing.
Morning, guys.
Morning, Mike.
Oh, wonderful. Weather's perfect.
Yeah.
What a pleasant change.
Got to do these both sides, and then just that little hip corner there, yeah.
There's the other
Then
end,
we're,
and there's the other end. A little bit to mess about on the other end.
We've got to do the same thing on the other end, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're on the furrings and the boards for the flat roof.
Well, Nick and Simon are really cracking on with the roof. And I know we still have shed loads to do, but it really is starting to take shape. And what's more, the sun's coming out.